Hi everyone, I'm David Dean Hastings and welcome to the Terms and Concepts of the Week, Close Quarter Combat. So this week we're talking about a new distance. Everything that we've done so far has a very specific distance depending on what you're trying to achieve. If I'm in grappling distance, I need to be able to place my hands comfortably on my partner's shoulders in order to grab their hair or choke them or grab their clothing. If I'm going to do a non-contact strike, I needed to be at a further distance away as to not actually come into their personal space when doing a non-contact slap or non-contact punch. Now we're talking about a closer distance. It's in the name, close quarter combat. Close quarters, meaning closer in range or distance from my partner or my opponent. Combat, a physical altercation between two or more people. So close quarter combat, we've been exploring a new kind of weapon, right? We talked about elbows. So if I'm going to strike at a closer range, the elbow kind of makes sense because it is a shortened limb. It's basically from my shoulder all the way to the tip of my elbow. Now, there are several things I can do with an elbow strike. I can come through very much like the cross punch, where I'm thinking about taking my elbow right here and the space inside my elbow and striking and also raking across their face. And that's why in MMA, elbow strikes are so punishing, because it's not just the blunt force trauma, it is also the fact that I'm taking my elbow and I'm raking it across some of the soft tissue. That's why these areas right here are so damaged in a lot of MMA fighters. They're getting that elbow in there and raking it across their face, doing a lot of not only blunt force trauma damage, but also a tearing kind of action. It is very easy to dislocate somebody's jaw by using such an elbow strike. So we talked about this portion of your arm coming through and hitting across their face. Now again, we have a distance in our class that is still, again, a good foot or so away from my partner's face, but it is a closer distance than we have done for, let's say, the roundhouse punch or the cross punch. Another elbow strike we can do is one that doesn't go across the target, but toward the target, very much like our jab punch. So I bring that elbow up, and again, I want to think about that bone that is inside the point of my elbow, like 3 or 4 inches inside, and thinking about hitting, coming in with that strike and coming away, very much like the jab. So that hard bone is coming in and slamming into my opponent's face or nose and doing a lot of damage and coming away. So it's really important for me not to lean forward with that strike, but just pulse my hip. So I'm using my core as the engine which drives this forearm in. Again, in stage combat, what I want to do is I want to bring that forearm up parallel to my partner's face as if I had a tattoo that said, "Have a nice day," and come in with that strike, the whole while they're able to read that nice positive tattoo. As long as I have the correct distance and I'm cueing properly with my elbow strike, any of the angles are viable, not only the ones that go across, but there are rising ones or there are descending ones, as long as I emphasize to the audience the weapon I'm about to use. That's why it's so important when I set up for a cue for an elbow strike that I emphasize the elbow and de-emphasize the fist. If I just bring up my arm here, this very much looks like the cross punch cue that we've done in class. So if I emphasize the elbow and I keep this fist tucked in, I'm really showing the audience that this is the thing that I'm going to try and do damage with. As long as I'm very clear about my cue, the audience will understand what my intention is. Same thing with this forearm strike that comes in. As long as I come in with the forearm itself and not with the point of the elbow or the hand, they're going to get the idea that this is coming in at a flat surface and bouncing off the target. So as with all of our elbow strikes, we really want to think about this as the area that I'm using to do damage to that person, not the tip of my elbow so much. So that translates also into the lower extremities, the knees. We talked about striking our opponent with our knee, but we're not actually striking with our kneecap. That's going to hurt us. So I want to think again, if this is my thigh right here and my kneecap is here, I don't want to think about striking or coming in with my kneecap. I want to think about coming in with the top of my thigh or the quadricep. This area right here has muscle to it. So I want to think about that being the thing that is coming in toward my partner and away, as if I'm doing the knee strike to their abdomen, coming in, very much like that forearm strike that comes in and out, like the jab. So it is the muscly part of my thigh making contact, if it is a contact strike, with my partner. Even if it's a non-contact strike, the technique is exactly the same. The only thing that is different is proximity. I would get a little bit further away, so once again there would be distance between my thigh parallel to my partner's abdomen. So I would have to bring that cue up parallel to the striking area, and I would move in and out on a horizontal plane. If I'm coming up on a diagonal, I run the risk of jamming underneath their ribs. So if this is my partner and this is me, again, I want to come in at a 90-degree angle, and my thigh is parallel coming in and out. So it sounds pretty simple, right? Well, here's the trick: balance. If I'm going to throw a knee strike, whether it be non-contact or contact, balance is key. So I'm taking one leg off the ground and I'm striking with it. That leaves one leg to balance on. So I need to have a good, strong foundation. The posting leg, the leg that I am using for balance, needs to be slightly flexed at the knee, so I have some stability and a little bit of cushion on my joint, right? And I need to counterbalance a little bit to lift up that other leg. Now I can also rely on my partner. We have techniques where I'm placing my hands on my partner to have some sort of, again, some stability, some bracing as I lift that foot off the ground. So it's also important for my partner to have a nice solid base. So what are the takeaways with close quarter combat techniques? Well, here they are. One, yes, you will be closer to your partner because you're talking about a shortened limb that is striking them. Having said that, you still need an acceptable amount of distance between the object you're hitting. In many cases with the elbow strikes, it will be the face, and the weapon, right? So even if you're getting closer, you need to keep in mind there needs to be that safety window. Secondly, think more about this section of your forearm being the thing that is striking them, whether it be elbow doing like the crossing action or the elbow doing the smashing kind of jab-like action. If you're doing a knee strike, once again, don't think about the kneecap coming in, but the top of your thigh. Again, if this is your kneecap, the top of your quadricep right here. If this is your hip, this is the section that would be coming into your partner's abdomen or their lat muscle. If you're thinking of striking a major muscle group, that's the part you want to really focus on. And again, the action is more of a pulse of your core from your hips and legs rather than turning just your upper body. Again, I don't want to, in the case of this forearm smash, bring the elbow through. Again, that will look like the other elbow strike. Just like the knee strike, I don't want that kneecap coming toward my partner's center line. I want to think about it being parallel throughout the entirety of the action. So elbows and knees, close quarter combat, really powerful stuff. It says a lot about your character, but because we have closer proximity, that means you have less time to react and less room for error. So you need to be really crystal clear about your cueing and the trajectory of your striking. So what are the principles of close quarter combat? Well, with close quarter combat, there are three principles. Surprise. Not everybody expects an elbow to come at you. It can say a lot about your character. Violence of action. An elbow strike can be very powerful because I'm using my core, which are the bigger muscles of my body. And then speed. Because of the proximity, speed is really important because of the distance. Distance equals time. If I have a shorter amount of distance, it doesn't take that long to launch an attack. If I have greater distance, greater time, closer distance, closer time. So distance equals time. So you've got surprise, violence of action, and speed, the three pillars of close quarter combat. All right, everyone. Well, that's it for me. Be safe, throw some elbows, and be well.